order, and we're going to move the pickleball group to the the second item after our minutes, and then do the rest of the meeting after that, just so you guys don't have to sit around for everything we've got going on. That being said, are there any changes or corrections to the minutes from the last meeting?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. So we have the pickleball folks here tonight. Little bit of background maybe for the benefit of you guys, and the rest of the park board members, please feel free to chime in here. We've been looking at pickleball courts for over the last year of where we can put them. Ron was the one who was really brought it to our attention last year, and we had originally had $75,000 in the bonding budget. This last year we had asked for to go to that. That got turned down by the city council at that time. We've been looking at funding and looking at location of where they can go. So with that being said, you guys being here and the effort and the support that you're creating, I think is tremendous. I think it's what we need to accomplish things and to really end up with a nice facility. What that's going to look like, where it's going to be, I think we'll all determine as we go. But I guess I'm trying to say you're already preaching to the choir. We're believers in it and its necessity in the community. Ron, you have anything to add to that? Because that was really an item with yours.
Well said. I'm very thankful that you're all here. I think this is great, and like Pat was saying, it really furthers the cause, and I know it would be great to have you in the parks. Obviously, you don't look like rebel-rousers, and we do have problems there. So we want our parks to be used. We want to be utilized by everyone, and I think pickleball would be a great addition.
Mm-hmm. So that having been said, please go forward to the presentation. Anybody who comes to the podium, we'd ask that you just your name and where you're from so that it's on the record and we know who you are.
Well, good evening. I'm Deanne DeGraff. First of all, I have to add, thank you for that support. That makes us feel really good. I'm Deanne DeGraff. I've been a resident of Hudson since 1976, so I've seen a lot of changes here. I'm representing the Hudson Community Pickleball Association this evening, and we are here with a proposal for the city to construct 8 pickleball courts. Majority of the people that are here, and this is small compared to what we really have in group numbers of who plays pickleball in Hudson, but we are here as avid pickleball players and supporters of this proposal. What we would like to start with first is just a short video from NBC News, and it's about the growth of pickleball across the nation. They tell a really good story. Following the video, Michael Lammer, who is a USA Pickleball Association area ambassador, as well as our counsel to the Hudson Community Pickleball Association, will walk you through our proposal. So first we'll start with the video. Uh-oh. Sound. Do I do anything for sound?
That makes it easy. All right. My name's Michael Lammer. I used to live in Hudson. I now live in Baldwin. I'm the USAPA ambassador for Hudson, River Falls, St. Croix area. When I'm not doing business law in the morning, I'm playing pickleball at night. I play locally, I play regionally, I play nationally. As a member of the USA, it's a national organization, it's a nonprofit. 2 years ago, we had just under 1.5 million players. We expect 8 million players by 2018. We have the US Open we hold every year at Naples. We don't have enough courts at 48. We're moving to 68 courts this next year. It's the most phenomenal growth I've ever seen in sports. During the day, I teach pickleball classes at the Hudson YMCA for the last 2 years. I've never had a class that's not been full. This summer I taught full classes of 16 people, each class at Stillwater and Forest Lake, River Falls. We'll be teaching Menominee later. Every community, except for Hudson, has built courts. Again, I've never seen anything like it. I just helped with Eau Claire. We built 12 new racquetball courts this summer to go with 12 that we already have. Forest Lake, new courts. Edina, new courts. Woodbury, new courts. Shoreview, new courts. One of the most amazing things is that it starts out as a movement, as you see here tonight. When we started playing pickleball in Eau Claire, this was before my time, 3-4 years ago, there were 28 people, of which half were the snowbirds, bringing the game back from the villages and Flagstaff. Now we have over 350 members. We'll be put 2 or 3 tournaments a year on in Eau Claire, and our email list is 850 people. Shoreview, close by, is another example. 30 people, now 350. We have over 60 members that we signed up for the association in less than a week. We have a built-in demand just with the YMCA alone. We have the need. And I spoke, I had the opportunity to speak with Chris Coast, the executive director at the Y where I work and teach. They're going to be interested in doing a partnership with the city to help develop these courts. Since I'm teaching to the choir, the question is where to put the courts. Now, I submitted a proposal to you, and then I did a supplemental proposal which has the money, because that's the most important factor there. Not a question of when you're going to build the courts or where, it's how much will it cost the city, and how can associations and other companies help sponsor this. One of the things we looked at were 2 different sites, Grandview and Whitecamp. Both are suitable for pickleball courts, especially 8 courts, because you have parking, you have bathroom facilities, you have places for children to play, and you have a constant flow of people. One of the most amazing things of playing at Glen Park and River Falls is that that's where they stop in order to go trout fishing, and there's not a day that I'm there playing or teaching that 2 or 3 people come over. What's this? Pickleball. Happens all the time. And sooner eventually, 1 or more of those trout fishermen are playing pickleball. We had a Bible camp study going on to the next park at Glen Park, and all 16 came over and they all started playing pickleball with us. That's what will happen in Hudson. When you have a group like this, you'll have members, you'll probably have a membership of 80 people. 80 people can help the city put on a tournament. 1 tournament pays for all the maintenance, plus balls, plus paddles for the entire year. Unlike soccer fields or football fields or baseball fields, there's very little maintenance involved with pickleball courts. They should last on the average, just the painting alone, the color codes that we have, up to 9 years. The clubs that I'm familiar with, be it Stillwater, Menominee, Chippewa Falls, Eau Claire, River Falls, those clubs take care of the courts. When we have minor cracks, because we put at least a 9-inch fill underneath those courts, we have a filler for them. We buy windsocks, we buy windscreens, we buy benches, we buy the balls, we buy the paddles. So there's very little investment for the city once the courts are built. Tom brought up an excellent suggestion. He said, well, in your phase, you should have lights, which made me gulp because lights are expensive. However, he is correct. The most popular places in the cities do have lights, and I mentioned that as phase 2. One of the biggest things that will happen, and one of the things we were discussing with the Y was, can we get a facility built the way it's built from east to west that we could later put an inflatable dome on it? You'd be the most popular place in the Midwest if you're allowed to do that. So think in terms of 3 phases. The first phase, of course, is to choose a spot. We brought up 2 locations are ideal. In fact, I've walked them out and measured them. They will work. You may have some other ideas, especially Tom. The point is you need to get this forward and then to look at the cost factors. Now, I labeled under the supplemental materials several locations how much it cost. Yes, we'd love to be like Menominee and have the equivalent of 8 courts for $57,000. That's not going to happen here because the terrain here is a little canted. You mentioned that we might need, what, 2, 3, 4 inches of grading to bring that up. That's probably $20,000, $30,000 to do it. You're probably closer to Apple Valley, $130,000 for their courts because they had to grade, evacuate, and fill. Most communities have the ability to convert tennis courts. We don't have that here in Hudson. So you look for 2 things. Is there demand? The answer here is yes. You have a very strong demand in this area. Plus where you sit, you will draw people from Woodbury, probably either within 20, 25 miles, people will come to play pickleball. I, for example, drive an hour tonight to play tonight over at New Brighton. That's important because I'll give you an example of the Eau Claire recent pickleball tournament where their net profit was $1,500. They had 100 people. Eau Claire likes doing the tournaments because they figure they bring in $20,000 to $40,000 revenue for people coming, staying overnight, meals and gasoline. That's another advantage as well. If there's any questions you have for me, and I can answer them at this point in time.
I don't know about that, but maybe a little bit of clarification or historical background on how we are structured would be real beneficial in that we aren't a park and recs department. Hudson has never had a recreational component to our parks. All of the organizations that form from boosters to the latest one, the dog track,
Dog park?
soccer, I mean the dog park, soccer, Little League, have all been formed as associations to do it, and it goes back to the fact that we don't have a recs department because the city of Hudson, back then, still continuing, didn't want to foot the bill for everything without North Hudson and the townships participating. So the structure that has been here has grown, or that we're kind of operating under with is, for example, with the same tenant who's going to be up by the Grandview with the dog park, we've got the land. We're helping with things that the city can help with, but their association is going to do the improvements. The soccer association acquired their land, does what they do. Hockey has their own association. We don't even have tennis courts in the city as a city amenity. Anderson Park is I take it back. Anderson Park is the one. Yep. And the volleyball courts were built by Rotary. So I don't mean to throw cold water or whatever. We'll see how this plays out as to how the dance goes, or the participation with the city for land. We like both locations. We've talked of both Whitecamp and Grandview as locations for them, because the rest of the infrastructure is already there. We already have bathrooms, we already have parking, we already have electricity, and we can light them. And we aren't disturbing the way of life within the neighborhood. For example, if we were to put them at Burton Field, all of a sudden we've totally disrupted the organic flow of how the neighbors are using that at night, in the daytime, and everything else. That is going to have an impact on their lives. By putting it at Grandview or at Whitecamp, it's additive without taking anything away from the quality of life anybody already has there. Can anybody else think of anything to add to that but that's kind of where the ground that we stand on, or where we're coming from in our perspective. So in saying that, yes, we're really supportive and want to see it take off and do something. What we're going to have to be able to do for funding is going to have to probably end up being a blend of things, like you've said, that the association will take over and do, and what things can the city do. As I said earlier, we had funding in the budget that was removed. We intend to go back and look at that. And we also have several things coming up in how we are funded, besides what we get from bonding and taxpayer dollars, is the impact fees that new homes and new residences coming into the city pay a fee to the city in lieu of having to set aside land within their own complex or build their own facilities. We're going to have dollars coming in from what had been Hans Hagen's project. The old golf course project is going to generate revenues for us. We're restricted on how those dollars get used to new projects, so it fits totally with being able to do that. And we have to spend those impact fee dollars. If they're generated south of 94, they have to stay south of 94. If they're generated north of 94, they have to stay north of 94. So I think we're going to have dollars to accomplish what we'd like to accomplish. And that is a nice place for everybody to play pickleball that's safe, right? And for adults and kids. And I don't mean to speak for the whole park board, but just based on the experience of the discussions we've had in the past, like I said, you're preaching to the choir. We love having you on board to do this because we really would like to see it accomplished in town. I think you're right. It would be a hit, literally. So that's a little bit on how we're structured and how we have to, or how we proceed, or how we fund and do things. Unlike a city of River Falls where you have Parks and Rec and they have the money to, within their recreation department, to... Or
Menominee or Waukesha. Which is different, because Waukesha is similar to what you have here, but they both ended up paying for the courts. And then the associations come in and maintain them and add amenities to them.
Yeah.
How do you see a collaboration then with the association to move, as we move forward on this?
Well, first off, you guys know pickleball, we don't, okay? So your input as to layout, design, helping with location, all that stuff is integral. How can I say it? It's the wrong words, but it's going to be your courts. You know what I mean? You're the ones who are going to be using them. You're the ones who are going to be playing on it. You're the ones who are going to be taking care of them. And we haven't got the expertise on staff to be able to do all that stuff. So I think that'll be fantastic. As we progress and determine what it's going to be, where it is, and we start working then towards a budget to do it, we can look at what we have in current dollars that aren't already committed to something else that can be put to that. And if it comes to the point that we need to do something to raise dollars to do it, well, you've got our support in any way we can to help accomplish that to take place. And, you know, you're all voters. You're all taxpayers. It's democracy. This is America. I mean, this is what we're about. So we're all about trying to make a better community for all in doing this. You know, it's not like you're trying to create something, a little niche just for your own little use. This is something that's going to benefit everybody here. So I can't see being against it.
Okay.
I have something to add.
Yeah.
I think that this is an excellent opportunity to apply for a Bremer grant or some other grants. The Bremer Foundation, they're looking for collaborative efforts. I think that they would be very supportive of something that's going to be promoting a healthy community. I'm trying to remember what else I've read on their website, but they look for these kinds of opportunities. So I would strongly recommend that you look into applying and what the application process would be. Also, a Spark grant might be a good idea too. And those come up in the fall, or?
And plus, you've got the Anderson Foundation, McKnight, and others here with large populations of their employees who live and work here.
And we have 2 grant writers in the association that'll be performing some of those tasks.
Yeah.
Do you know, without being open, is there enough funds that the city can retain their engineering firm to make a determination what the cost would be. So if we as an association go to the Y and say we need 15,000 from the Y because the project's going to cost 120,000.
I think we'll be able to arrive at that point, yes,
Okay,
but I don't think we're there yet.
yes.
But Tom, correct me if I'm wrong here, you know, at some point, it's going to have to be the city's engineering firm that does the drawings, puts it out to bid, and all of that. So the only way that, you know, we'll collectively working together arrive at all that we need to do to go forward. What I would think would be necessary out of tonight's meeting, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong on this, would be a motion approving the concept that we want to do something with the association, authorizing city staff, because we're going to ask them to spend their time, we have to authorize them to spend the time working with doing this. And then out of that, then we can go forward to, and I'm going to say you're going to probably have a couple members on this, on the park board, who are going to be members of your planning group and functioning group, that can then lay out kind of a timeline of, if we wanted to open May 1st, here's what has to happen in April, here's what has to happen in March, and we have to go to the city in January. You follow what I mean? So that everything is lined up properly, so that come construction season, we're ready to go. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Is that what, I don't mean to hijack your ship in any way, but is that in keeping with what you as an organization would like to see and like to do?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's,
Ron, please.
I have a question. Which site would you guys prefer? I mean, what would be your first choice? What would be your
Grandview.
second? Grandview?
Grandview, because of the location,
Okay.
you have the amount of more parking than what, I mean, I would prefer White Camp because it's gorgeous, but practically, Grandview is better, especially off the fields. You got your electrical grid there, you have your bathroom, you have facility for the kids. There are so many parents who bring their kids to play when they play pickleball. So Grandview, because of location and the amount of people going there, will just continue the growth.
Where would you foresee it in Grandview? I mean, what area
Where
of the park?
we've talked about, there's the 2 ball fields
Right.
for softball. And the eastern field, its north border to the tree line to the north is wide enough and long enough that we could do a row of courts that would run, the courts would face, I would think,
Go
north and
east-west.
south.
Yeah,
But
north-south,
the
east-west.
string of them is on a strip that would run east and west.
Okay.
So you'd literally park, walk down that sidewalk by the softball fields and turn into the courts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the impact fees, it might be good that it's on the north. I mean,
And since it's north of 94, we'll have impact fees.
Well, it appears we have less impact fees on the north. Do we have any idea how much impact fees are going to come in from the new construction?
No, but is Mike still here? We've spoken that we're trying to get that number quantified with the city.
Okay.
As to what it is, what's already been committed to, other things, and what kind of numbers we're going to have to look at and work with. So I think we'll be able to have, you know, meaningful information coming along in a timely fashion, that decisions can be made, and we don't have to cover the same ground again because we didn't know to look for that. And that's where the advantage comes in of having you guys. You're the experts. You know what works for layout of courts and what doesn't. Well, please, yes.
Tom Zoli, Public Works. Glad to work with you guys. We had a nice meeting the other day. We looked at White Camp Park and nice spot, but there's some grading issue where it slows down to that storm line. I think, I suggested you guys going out to Grandview. Seems like it's less probably grading over there. Plus, if it's laid out where you guys are playing north and south, it'd probably be less of a sun issue in your eyes.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
Just me talking on. With that said, just a suggestion, I think it might be advantageous for, the staff here with the city, along with some park board, one or two people on the park board, and whoever you feel part of your group to make a committee and, get our basic ideas down. We can get kind of an action plan going. You already have a schedule kind of formatted there, with your dates, and to have it ready for next summer, which is exactly what you have to do now. You have to start now to make that happen. So with that, I mean, we can look at, talk about when we have our meeting, talk about the possibilities of funding for grants to help. One thing I want to clarify with the city attorney is to make sure that we can utilize the park trust fees for this project. There has to be specific things in our master plan and our overall needs assessment that identifies pickleball in that plan. And I know in our 5-year action plan, I think it was noted in there. I just want to make sure that it's still okay in our needs assessment. So I want to clarify, we don't have enough money to do your proposed nearly $100,000. We don't have that in. So, we're going to have to be aggressive. It's going to be some work to get some grants. This group that started up the dog park, they're very aggressive. They came up with nearly $30,000 with donations. So it's possible, and that was just a small, I don't think it was as big a group as you have here. I couldn't tell you exactly, but I think that's going to have to be something to keep, you guys keep in your mind, that there's going to have to be some fundraising and a cooperative effort on both sides. Can it happen? Absolutely. And I think it's a great idea, and I'd be glad to, really work with you guys. And so I can see that happening with, whoever you guys choose as a few members that would like to, head that. And whoever we can talk, I don't know, Ron or whoever would, Joyce or Vicky, who would like to, Mike, I don't know, who would like to work with us, sit down together, have a few meetings, and just iron out some details and get it going.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll choose our chairperson, but we'll have a committee.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll be set up.
And it's easier now that we've kind of narrowed it down to first choice, as Grandview. And we can go out someday, stake it, and, I can get some engineering estimates from our consulting engineer just to, see what's needed for layout and maybe some project estimates. But you already have some of those. And, I'm sure that, they can come up with an estimated cost pretty reasonable, so.
Because we'd have all the soils data and all that.
Oh, that makes it so much easier. And a lot of those numbers I used were already quotes from companies that did the work for Chippewa Falls and Eau Claire, Menominee.
Oh, yeah, that's great. So they're pretty,
We're
solid
close.
numbers.
It's the evacuating and grading that's made me nervous, the unknown factor.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have the standard colors, the size needed, I think I seen it in one of your proposals. Yes. So, I mean, we can, I can get the local excavator guy around here that, just to see, hey, how much is this going to cost to grade this? And then after that, it's kind of like, how much gravel we need and what kind of asphalt we need or whatever, the fencing.
Okay.
So I'm willing to plug away at it.
Excellent.
I'll make a motion to proceed with evaluating and site location.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Just who would like to volunteer to be on
We'll get to
the
that.
committee?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. And whoever wants to be on the committee with it, please tell Tom, and you guys can start setting a schedule for when you can get together and going. But I think it's it's wonderful to have you guys on board to accomplish this, because I think it'll happen. Or a greater likelihood of happening. Thank you. Yeah.
Come on out and try pickleball.
Yeah.
That's because I'm a sourpuss.
Pretty familiar with this discussion from, I think it was postponed on March 7th. That I want to highlight a few things. The first being that in this proposal, Andy Crone, the owner of the property, the owner of the existing house on that small lot that you see in your attachment, would provide the city with 7 additional new on-street parking stalls in front of this mixed-use building, which would house a corporate entity as well as some condo residential units. It would also clear up basically the trail is our current city trail is going over his property on the north end, the northwest corner of the property. And we would get additional parking stalls over there for that canoe kayak launch. We're talking about 4,500 square feet of total property. So between the on-street parking and clearing up that trail encroachment, what's being proposed is that the city would vacate a portion of property to allow for the building construction, and it's effectively it's a net zero. So the city isn't out any park ground, it's not gaining any park ground, it's the same. And I would, from a staff's perspective, I would say it really clears up that encroachment issue. You know, we've got a lot of those things downtown where we've got trails and alleyways and things that are, you know, that probably just need to be cleaned up, and I think it makes for a more usable a property long term. So with that, I'll turn over to Andy to I guess.
Well, when we did the site visit last, I don't remember when it was, on the north end, where people were parking to launch their canoes and things, that seemed like kind of a safety issue down there. With people walking and then backing the vehicles out, I had a problem with that.
Yep, it's gravel and they're parking on his property, but
Right.
it's a public launch, and it's just not a good situation. It really isn't. So, yes, I agree.
So 7 spots on the north side.
It would be on the southeast. Well, yes, if we lined them like they're shown by the boat launchers thing, Tom.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we also pick up the
7.
parking spots, the 7 new ones up on First Street
Correct.
at the south end of the property.
Yep. Yep.
So where the trail comes close to the proposed building, and there's some gray or black lines there, is that just a buffer, or is that landscaping?
That's the area that would be conveyed to Andy.
Okay.
Okay.
A portion of, so that's that grayed out area is the portion that the city would be vacating.
How many square feet? I mean, is it close to a pretty similar?
Look at the summary and that shaded areas. It's the exact same.
Okay. Just going down the road, we just had our master riverfront master plan, and we talked a lot about things from the interstate bridge to St. Croix Street. We didn't talk a lot about trails, but we just have to make sure that as we move forward with now and 5 years and 10 years, that if they do something with that trail that's related to bikes and things, we have to make sure that the park retains enough property to make, right now this is an 8-foot trail or 9-foot trail that's probably okay for pedestrians, but if that trail ever would open up to bicycle traffic, that trail could either be, might need another trail or have that trail expanded to 12 or 14 feet. So I just want to make sure that where the trail intersects with that property, that we have maybe even on this park property, that we have enough room to expand that trail. I think there is, but.
Yeah, I think there is too, Tom, and I think the reality is the trail's already so close to that retaining wall along that existing parking that was done as part of phase 1. I don't think you would add on to what would be the northeast side.
No, that's close. It's only.
So your only option is to go to the west, southwest,
Yeah.
which, the city already has
Yeah.
a significant amount of property, so. But I agree, I wholeheartedly agree that we need to be making sure that we preserve space for additional park or
But I don't see any red flags with the proposal. But,
Tom, would it make sense to maybe have an easement for future bike trails, guys? Just in case? That's his concern. It may not happen.
Well,
If I can feel that, Matt Frisbee with Harris Associates, and as we would address that too, and that's why there's that buffer there, that we want that ability, and we'll grade and we'll landscape in that area, and then with that, we could, contemplate, what does that mean if there's an extra 5 or 10 foot easement just in case something does happen on either side of that trail. But it is meant to be set aside as a buffer anyway, so yeah, we would be okay with that.
You be all right with that?
someone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I did.
If not, the chair will call. Go ahead.
Oh, I have concerns because we just had a presentation of information about the park plan, and nothing's been decided on that. So I think that it's a little bit too early to make this decision without having more information about the park plan.
If I can answer that a little bit, because I've been a part of that steering committee that's working on that with the mayor, and this did come up on that, and the mayors and I can't think of the gentleman's name from the engineering firm who's leading, didn't feel that it was in conflict with what we're trying to do in the park to begin with. When he heard that, when Ed was told that it was owned by a private individual, that the house is going to get turned into something, he was really pleased, and that was going to be his recommendation, was that, if that little house ever came up for sale, that the city should buy it, or that, somebody should do something with it so it isn't looking like it is. And we told him that there's a project in place that had been put on abeyance until we got along further. And Mike, you have anything to add on that, on the city's perspective there?
I'd say that, you have to look at for highest and best use too. Currently, it's a bombed out old little white house. It's a lot that you really couldn't. No offense, Andy. You know, there's really you couldn't build anything on it ever because it would never meet setbacks, which is why we're in the issue that we're having right now, right? So if somebody wanted to go in there, even if it was the city and said we wanted to build a park shelter or some sort of structure, we'd still have to meet setbacks, right? What this proposal does, and it's probably outside of the purview of the park board, but it's certainly an issue that the council and the plan commission will have to work through, is, you know, we're talking about a large increase to our tax base downtown too. A large amount of taxable revenue that would be generated by the location of a corporate entity there too, with the residential. And then the fact of the matter is, you know, what could we possibly use that space for? And because we don't control it, right? The city doesn't. So it's really kind of an unusable piece of dirt for us right now.
Any other questions at this time?
Well, just
Go ahead,
a
Tom.
couple things. You know, the 887 feet is the property nearest the house. So, you know, that's pretty small. Then the biggest part is, you know, up on Orange Street, and actually if we gain, you know, 7 parking stalls and get that area cleaned up, and right now, I've driven down there the last 2-3 days, I've been monitoring a boat and stuff that's down there, but right now you drive in the mud, and, you know, I get out into the mud, and to have some asphalt paved parking areas and utilize an area that is becoming more popular. We talk about this plan, and that plan is, you know, more of a natural boat launch, Joyce. And actually it's going to help, it's going to actually improve that area, which that, you know, is identified in here as a kayak canoe area, which is kind of used now, but this is only going to enhance that area.
And one of the things that was discussed with Ed at that time when we talked about that was he had brought up it sure be nice to have some racking or something down there for people.
I think that's a good point.
And that's what this gives us the room to be able to do as well.
It was in both the urban and the organic schemes that they presented last night. Each of them kind of built upon that canoe kayak launch to make it more user friendly, because it is so, and it's just a gravel dirt, you know, and it's not very user friendly or welcoming for that matter. I think whether it's a passive or more active recreation use that's considered in the future, I think it's I think this would be a good start towards that.
The other thing, if you look, and I think Mike mentioned it earlier, but way in that left-hand side, there's a little black dot there. That's the city property. Private property, that's actually the Crone property, so Andy's property. So you see that trail is on the other side of that? So, you know, I did talk to, you know, got a couple estimates to move that trail to get it on our property is going to be several $1,000s. So, you know, you really should consider that along with the improved parking, just enhancement of that area. Make sure that we get an easement for, you know, like I said, where that trail is down below by that retaining wall, the only way we can go is toward the river, which it's probably going to be in the floodplain at some point, maybe during high waters, but I still think we should look in the future and say, hey, okay, we're going to expand that to, you know, some type of bike trail. I can see that coming down the road.
Well, that's what he said last night, was a 12 feet wide.
Yeah, and I think with I know from what I know of that area, I think we can expand because it kind of goes up a hill right where this buffer area is. So I'm pretty sure that that's going to be out of the floodplain, and I think we can expand to the west, southwest a little bit there. But if we get a 10-foot easement on that side, I think we have plenty of room.
Okay.
So that's my thoughts. And then, of course, the downtown issue, if we gain another 7 parking stalls, that's going to help the parking downtown.
Yeah.
So hearing all that, the chair will call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks for your project, Andy. Good luck. You still got to go through everything with the DNR and like, this is the first, this is a low step on the hurdles to go over, but good luck on your project.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Next item we had was the engineering costs for the stairway from Third to Prospect. Tom, you want to go through that?
One of those things you kind of go, ouch.
Yes. Yes.
Ouch.
I noticed that.
As we all know that the steps, the historic steps that go up to Prospect Park, right up the hill, 3rd Street Hill, are in disrepair, unsafe, and we were going to try to get those replaced. Based on some earlier projects that we had for metal steps, such as like right behind City Hall, we estimated the project to be around $30,000. You know, just from those couple projects. But when we started bidding the project out, we needed to get a design, you know, an engineered design, and the manufacturers, you know, they could build them, but with our procurement policy is that we have to get separate, you know, 2 quotes, 2 bids, because it was going to be over $15,000. With that said, you know, we needed to make sure that when we go take that proposal out for bid, we have a design that's safe and can be bid out competitively. So we went to the engineering firm, and this is a quote we got. I don't know if you got it printed out in your packet. Engineering design, bid documents, $8,500. Construction services, another $4,500. Testing, $2,500. Construction, estimated construction costs about $90,000. So total project $105,000, possibly over $100,000. So that $30,000 isn't going to cut it. So 2 things we can do is right now our capital projects are set for 2017 and 18. This was going to come out of in that time period. So we could wait till 2019, or the park board could request to see if there's any monies available somewhere else to come up with that. That's a large sum, though.
Yeah.
If it was a few thousand, couple thousand, whatever. But
What would it take to just refurbish what we have?
I had a welder come in and was going to do that, and he said he wouldn't do it because of liability.
Sure.
He wouldn't do it.
Tom, out at Willow River, they've got the stairs that go up by the falls. Do we consider something like that? This just seems
It's
excessive.
Yeah,
And
I agree. That's why I brought it back.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just outrageous.
yeah.
Finance director would like to continue to proceed with it because they want to reallocate it, to
We could reallocate it towards pickleball courts.
Yeah, we could, we'll
I mean,
keep it.
You could.
I mean,
And then, I guess if that's the case, we could wait till 2019, and then, now we have something to go on. I mean, if that's the route we have to do, or maybe there's another alternative you would like to check first.
Do we absolutely need those stairs there? I'm all about shortcuts, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of, how many
I like
$1,000 a step?
You know what I mean? And if they're not handicap accessible and everything else, I'm wondering, do we still just need those steps there? I know it's a piece of history, I get that.
Very valid point. I mean,
That said, I think the idea was, a few years ago, we developed, the Public Works crew developed a trail system there. At one time, it was just foot traffic. It was a trail this way. And I think there was a request or, to get people from downtown up into the park. And the steps were there and they were in still good repair. Then the city put another sidewalk on that side to go from downtown up Third Street Hill. And then the Public Works at that time, after we got the sidewalk in and we expanded the trail. So I don't know if you guys have ever been up there, but if you go to the top of that stairs and you wind around and there's a couple of Ys, this is going to be the next, when we start talking about the goats.
Yeah.
That's the area that we're talking about.
Sure.
It's actually absolutely beautiful. There's like cottonwood trees that are this big.
Well, it's gorgeous.
Ferns that are this high that, I mean, it's a wonder. To lose that, I don't know. I think it's something that we should really consider. I think it's a little more than a shortcut.
Well, could we ask
But
Catherine for a release for the welder to come in and re-weld it?
or if there's a way, I know that the steps, I just got to get by this procurement policy. You know what I mean? Or
It's running the cost up so high.
it is. I mean, I could just go out and get a couple of quotes and say, we want a step, but I just have to have some parameters. And I'm not, this engineering guy said we need landings and this and ADA compliant, different railings, and we need this and that. And it's more complicated maybe than I think, but.
That's why if we could just fix what we got.
It's not, I can't fix it.
And, well, if she could, it's non-repairable, or the welder wasn't willing to do it and take on the liability if something happened.
He won't.
That's my point, is if we could release him from the liability, as long as it was done professionally and done.
Because right now they're grandfathered in with being,
the way they are.
whenever you replace,
Non-compliant.
then you have to bring it up to the new standard or code.
That's why I raised the question of can we repair in some way?
I'll check into that.
Yeah.
In the event that it's unfixable, I mean, should I check other places or ask? I mean, I know the finance director wants, if we're not going to do this year, then she would like to move forward, and we could request it to go toward pickleball.
Hey, Tom, is there a way we could maybe bring the steps farther down the hill and bring them up in there, access the trail, maybe farther down so we don't have to have quite as, I mean, the slope's
I think
pretty
actually it's
steep.
steeper as you come down.
It is, okay, I'm just wondering.
I think that's a less steep spot, right? That's where they probably had it, why they had it. So that's where we're at with that. I'll see what I can do for repairs. I'll see what I can do for other alternatives.
I think we want to do something up there, just not at this cost.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And we want it to be safe.
Well, it has to be safe.
The $100,000
Yeah,
for
no,
that stairway is.
But if that's the cost, and are you otherwise recommending for 2019?
Well, that would be another option.
Yeah.
When we do the budget. Move
Yeah,
it out to
right.
that. But we'd sure like to be able to use it for pickleball courts.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
we're going to have to
Well,
if we can use allocate those dollars to.
the other issue with pickleball courts, we have pretty good funding if we consider White Camp.
Well, we have more funding there than,
Right. And with the impact fees, when could we realistically expect to see those? Or when could we start utilizing them?
But that's what we're waiting to get,
Okay.
because I'm not entirely sure if it's generated by individual sales or if it's as the project comes in,
Okay.
within their phases.
I think we should bring that up at the next meeting.
Mike, do you know the answer to that? Of how the impact fees come in?
I'm sorry, I probably don't.
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar with that
Yeah.
process.
But that's what we're trying to get our arms around with the budget and with the mayor as to where are we? Where are they already kind of earmarked to go for things, or who already has, things in the works for it. But if we could use those dollars to do some of the preliminary work on the pickleball stuff, that would get us weather-wise a jump on next spring.
You bet.
It might be very worthwhile to do.
So number one, we probably want to table this stairs till 19, is that kind of
Yes.
where we're going?
Mm-hmm.
All right, but we still want to retain the funds for other park projects?
Is that a motion?
Yes, that's what I'm discussing here.
Yep.
It would be a motion, yes.
I would second that motion.
So in the interim, do we have to close the stairs off now that we know they're not safe?
They're closed
They're
right
already
now.
are.
They're already
Let's
closed.
cross them.
They can be torn down.
Just with some barricades that are wired on there.
Tear them down and they're going to
All right.
Yeah.
Yep, so I think we'll make a motion to postpone new construction on stairs till 2019, or if we find out a cheaper option in the meantime, can I put that in there?
Sure.
And also retain the funding and earmark it for pickleball.
Second to that motion?
I second it.
Have it, Deb? Well, you can take that.
You can shorten it up.
On video. Is everybody clear on what you're voting on and doing? Is there a second?
I second
It's
it.
seconded.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. The next item we have is our ordinance to allow us to have goats in the park.
Joyce, didn't you work on that? Mm-hmm. Maybe you want to talk about that.
Good work, Joyce.
Well, we now have an ordinance that allows the use of goats for buckthorn and other invasive species. So you can have, I think, up to 2 30-day sessions with the goat each season. And everything's all laid out as far as retaining the goats in a certain area, cleaning up after them, things like that.
Yeah.
And the people that were at the meeting that rented out the goats, it was $2.85 per goat per day was what they were charging.
Mm-hmm. My son's had them at his place east of town 2 summers in a row now, and it's amazing what they work raised down and the difference it made. Yeah. He had 14, I think, the first year and 7 last year.
A lot easier on your back than pulling that buckthorn.
Oh, yeah. And you're not using the chemicals on your ground to get rid of them. And we've had, Rotary has had a number of brushing sessions up on the park. One of the churches, I think it was Bethel Lutheran's youth group, was up there a couple of different springs cutting brush. And it's so thick. But with the goats, it would be great.
So again, does, Pat, your experience from your son, does it kill the buckthorn or does it chew it down? Or
They
what?
chew it down to literally nothing. And then when it starts to regenerate, they're overgrazing it is what they're doing. And so when it goes to regenerate, they're nibbling off the new shoots that are coming up, so the stump dies.
So it's a 2-step process.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So do you do it in the fall and the spring or
They just did it
spring and later in the
one
summer?
year and then the following year
Okay.
to do it. I know Schoberg's had them in town, and that's what brought to the forefront that was against the ordinance and why that came about. So it looks like we're going to be able to do that, and Public Works could probably use them down on Shillelagh Lake and places like that too, where we have thistles. And
Question is, who cleans up every day? Is that city staff, Tom?
No, it's
Yeah,
the
it's
owners.
in the
The
or- oh,
the
the
goat
owners
owners.
do?
The goat owners come in and clean
Oh,
up.
nice.
no.
That's part of the service.
I envision us out there with a bucket maybe.
I thought it was fertilizer.
I would think it could
Yeah,
be.
I mean, why pick it up on the hillside? But anyhow, so that, more of an update as to what's going on.
Lord, are we going to
with that.
pursue that next year, Tom? I think we
Actually,
should.
we put it in the, our budget, which is coming
Good.
up here next
Okay.
item.
All right.
We
Perfect.
did put it in there. I did get some information. I had this husband and wife from St. Croix Falls. It's called the Munch Bunch, same people that Roy Schoberg had.
Okay.
So her and her husband came up and we looked at Prospect Park, similar to where the stairs are and that 3rd Street hillside. And then that's where our trail is, one of the trails, and we actually have one bench with a view of the river. We'd like to add more. And then if you go back, the trail winds back up on top and it comes out by the old hospital site. It branches off, you can go to the Lookout Point or back to the hospital site. Then from that point, there's a finger that goes out that we used to have.
Clear it out, yeah.
It was always mowed, and we had picnic tables down in there, and a lot of the hospital people would have their lunch down there. Since the buckthorn took over, it's gotten narrower and not really usable, and it totally took away the view of the river. So the last few summers, Rotary has been up there clearing buckthorn. This other organization is called Great River Greenings. It's a group that organizes volunteers for natural projects like this. And the last 2 summers, there's been a group from Anderson Windows that comes over for half a day. They did it last year, and they did it, I think there was close to 50 of them came over this few weeks ago. You should see the buckthorn they cut down. I mean, they got rid of the big stuff. And then they cut it down and brought it up, and then they threw it in trucks, and city staff hauled it, brought it out into the open, and then we had St. Croix Tree come in and haul it and dispose of it. We wanted to get rid of it.
Good.
So they've made really good progress, but the proposal that this group sent us was for goat grazing project, and I have to, now I have to go back to the ordinance, but here's what they had for a proposal. Goat grazing project at Prospect Park covering 7.5 acres in May of 2018, estimated 35 days, and then there was a price. Then again, they would like to come back for a second grazing in July of 2018 for 50 days. We may have to cut that down to the 30 days. So then that cost would come down. So I guess I don't know how many of these, we'll have to get quotes. So I'm sure I know there's other people around. We'll have to get another quote before we move forward. But we presented that portion of in the Public Works budget, and we called it buckthorn eradication. We put goats. Really, we didn't see any red flags at that time.
Great.
So now it still has to make it through finance and the next couple hurdles, but but it is in the budget, and it made it the first step.
Good. So with that as a lead-in, our next item is our operating budget for next year. Going forward. Tom, you want to lead that in?
Sure. 2000 operating budget for 2018. This is what we proposed to Public Works a few weeks ago. And basically, we felt after looking at where we're sitting with the history from 2016, 2016, and where we were, where the operating budget was a few weeks ago, prior to the meeting, we pretty much kept everything the same. We were comfortable keeping pretty much everything the same with just with adding the monies for the buckthorn eradication, and the proposed dog park did come up a little bit higher than the 2017 budget. But like I said, unless there's one line item that you see that you want to talk about, everything is very similar. I think we look at it and it was like a 1.1% increase. Just the overall general overview of it, we just talked about, we need a park needs assessment so when this pickleball things or when other requests come up, we want to make sure that, we can utilize these park funds the right way, because I know the city attorney, we talk a lot about that. And I know Mike said that's probably, we should include that with our overall comp plan, which is, I think, going to be scheduled maybe 2019.
Has to be.
Yeah.
So,
Redo it.
in the meantime, we'll just see if we, make sure that we keep things. I know that we included those pickleball courts in our, in our budget, or our park overall plan. Hopefully that'll cover it. But basically, other than the, the dog park, and the buckthorn eradication, everything kind of stayed flat. We're comfortable with where we're at.
So is the dog park in the general parks maintenance, the contractual other services? It went from 11 to 23?
Actually, it's going to be in Grandview Park. It'll just be another.
A line item in that budget?
It's not in this one, but it's not where it's.
I'm sorry, which one were you on, Vicki?
Some on page 3.
3 of 6, okay.
Yeah, the general parks maintenance, the very last line I made is other contractual services. Went from 11,000 to 23,500.
Yeah,
That's where the goats are?
Yeah, it was about
Okay.
12,000,
Okay, great.
a little over.
Okay.
The Grandview Park will absorb the 5,000 with 1,000 going to other operating and 4,000 going to.
Okay.
I just don't have it in here because it was.
Hey, Tom, I know we had some vandalism on the locks up at Prospect. Wasn't that vandalized, the locking system up on the bathrooms?
We had some there and White Camp. Oh, the locks at Prospect.
Yeah.
And then the water fountains at White Camp.
So how do we cover that? Is that a contingency fund, insurance? How do we cover that?
First 1,000 is covered by insurance.
Okay.
Or, no, excuse me. We have to cover the first $1,000 deductible. So it comes out of our operating budget.
And did we?
Insurance picks up the rest.
Okay.
So it hurts us. I mean, stuff
Well,
like
that's why
that really hurts
Well, I
us.
guess I'm wondering if maybe we should have a little more of a rainy day fund added in for those contingencies, which, I mean, we have stuff like that every year, don't we, guys?
We-
They just did away with all the contingency funds pretty much this year.
Can't have them anymore.
They call them.
Well, but I mean, so where do we get the money? That's my question. And then it appears? Okay, well, forget it.
Nope.
All right.
We haven't really had any issues covering.
All right, that's good. If it's a vandalism or something, we're
In the
okay.
end, it
All right.
appears that way.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Hearing that, are there any items for future agendas that people have that we need to be looking at or thinking of that we haven't?
Oh,
Go ahead.
could I just do an update or you want to
Yeah.
do it after
Go ahead.
So as maybe I mentioned earlier, Ed Freer from our consulting engineer, SEH, came the other day and met with Mike Johnson and myself, the mayor, and he had just some basic initial plans for Lake, and Pat was there. From basically Interstate Bridge to St. Croix Street. Pat requested that we get an estimate to expand that parameters from St. Croix Street up to Lake Malibu. To see, to have included in here.
Just so it's in our
as a-
master plan, so if we go to do something in the future, there's dollars, it's already within the plan and the scope to be able to go. And Mike is going to have it be a part of the overall plan. Do you want to take that, Mike? Yeah.
Well, we've already got money allocated. We've been saving for the past 2 years for our comp plan update, which we statutorily have to have it done by 2019 or in 2019. So I think it's important that, we keep revisiting this waterfront vision study instead of just shelving it and saying, okay, we did the study, awesome, it's done. This will give us an opportunity to revisit it and also expand it upon it during the comp plan process. So that's what I would propose.
Because
the money's there, we don't have to worry.
And you know, we've got the boat launch, the old Dairy Mart site there is heavily used. Yeah, the fishing pier, they're going to build another one right before Little Dam on the side there. That's getting used heavily. You know, it's a part of our waterfront that, granted, right now it isn't heavily used or maintained or anything done with it, but in the future we may want to, and if it's in the plans, then we can be able to do it. The concepts that they put forward dealt with all the different stakeholders in the community, from people from the Sierra Club to the business organizations downtown, and they tried to focus on making it nice for the people who already live here. You know, on how do we access it, how do we use it, how do we best use it, and then at that same time, how do we do it in a way that's not only attractive but also takes advantage economically of our waterfront. So, you know, some of you have heard there's been talk of maybe doing a boardwalk, a floating boardwalk from the boat launch all the way to the dike, you know, as an attractive thing for not only for people to walk on and be on, but also a place for the raft of boaters who are out there every Saturday and Sunday to be able to pull up and come into town and make it more convenient and comfortable for those kinds of things. I think it'll really do a good job of helping the city focus into the future for what they want to do and how things are going to coordinate, especially with all the changes that are going to be taking place in the downtown district over the next couple of years. That'll come in and play into that as well. And they were going to have another meeting. Well, you had it last night with others.
They presented it to the council last night.
Yeah, and then I think there's 2 more planning meetings in their schedule for the feedback, and then they'll come and present something else to us.
So the other, you know, we had this other park information. Anderson Park restroom is, the building is complete. We're just waiting to, we had to do some adjusting of the trail up by the restroom. And it's pretty well cleaned up, so that Anderson Park restroom should be done shortly. You might see some activity up at White Camp. We're going to use some of those park funds for perimeter lighting around the Universal Playground, similar to the lights that we have downtown. There'll be LED, same type of lighting, you know, the decorative poles like we have down in Lakefront Park. So I see they're staked out. I went by there this afternoon and they hadn't started digging yet, but you'll see that, you know, yet. And I think we had a really good summer with reservations, and we had some good seasonal help.
Park's looking in good shape. Really do.
Well, I want to compliment the park employees. My brother got married in Prospect Park on August 12th, and everything looked very nice. You know, everything had been mowed and taken care of and cleaned, and we were very happy with the
great.
Yeah,
park.
good. Good to hear comments. We hear some other comments. One thing I forgot, I want to make a note, Ann Wasman with the dog park people are here. We got bids for the dog park fencing. We awarded the bid. The contracts are signed. I spoke with the contractor a couple hours ago, and he's going to send in request locates, utility locates, and probably in the next 2 weeks, we're going to get started. We're going to meet on site, and he'll lay it out. If you would care to be up there, Ann, or someone from your group.
Yeah, please just let me know.
Yeah, and he said it might be the next couple weeks. So that's going to be exciting, and yeah, I think we're doing good. This is really exciting.
And if the pickleball comes about with that energy.
Oh boy, that's the biggest crowd I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Yes.
that'll be fabulous.
That's why I sit close to the door.
Yeah, I got a little nervous when I saw that crowd. I thought, oh, I hope they're here for pickleball.
They were. Does anybody have any items for future agendas? If not,
Move to
I'll entertain a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All those in
Second.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.